TV Core-ner.
Hey, welcome to another Filmcore TV Core-ner Game of Thrones podcast. We're season 8, episode 2, Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Here with me, I have Greg.
Yo.
Yeah, and right off the bat, Winterfell is kind of in its final hours before the first big battle for the Dawn. As the band keeps getting back together, you know, hopefully we're done with all these reunion cutaways, but almost there. Our living army has now created their battle plans, so everyone's just having their final moments of reflection before it goes down. First thoughts on this episode? You love it? You hate it?
I loved it. I'm kind of surprised that you're talking about these reunions like they're annoying or something. Like, to me, it's always been the best part of the show. I love just that I love the humor in it. I love that people are just sort of like resigned to die and they're just chilling with each other. To me, the kind of the fun, like the best, I've certainly like mentioned this before, right? Like where the show is actually popular to people is the sort of like the Sopranos element of it, right? Right. Like famously they pitched it as Sopranos meets Middle Earth, and, genre is something, it's kind of like the icing, I think like it pulled in people who are, let's say, into this stuff, but like maybe didn't read the books. But ultimately, it's all about the characters, right? And the individual personalities, and seeing these people meet each other and kind of remembering that they know each other from I was watching this and I was forgetting about certain connections, you know what I mean? That had happened, right? And what was one? Like, I forgot that Ser Jorah spent all that time after having kidnapped Tyrion. Seeing those little moments come back to me was kind of I thought it was really elegant. Seeing the actors just get to, they're constantly reacting to this idea of this impending doom, but the tone of it is so resigned that it allows all the actors to have a little bit more fun with it. I think the characters. To me, it's kind of like if the series ended right here, I'd be totally happy.
In some ways I do agree, especially seeing Sansa and Theon sort of reunite and remembering the insane horror that they sort of endured together. It does kind of feel like everyone's sort of making peace with each other, as we see with one of our biggest characters, Jaime, at the beginning of this episode. We open with him, and he's on trial, sort of not officially, but unofficially, just being called out for all of his bullshit throughout all the years by literally everybody else except for Brienne. I think that we're showing that we're looking at the bigger picture, which is sort of our gripe with last episode, is that it felt like people were still being pretty petty. But now it just seems like, you know what, we don't have really time for this. We need every man we can get, and if he wants to fight, then sure.
Yeah, what I liked is that it didn't, except for maybe the reveal, and I know we'll get to this, but the reveal of Jon to Dany about who he is, I thought was the only clunky element of this episode, and just sort of jamming in plot. Ultimately, every scene that worked was just people chilling, right? And fucking around or reminiscing, or the more it went into plot, I think the worse it got.
Yeah, that's definitely where the sort of the clunkiness of certain performances shows. You get some really touching moments throughout scenes that, as you mentioned, where people are just sort of chilling. Like one of the final ones where Jaime knights Brienne.
Yeah, I loved it. I was so into it. So touching. Yeah,
super emotional. You know how much his endorsement of Brienne means to her. And just, going into such an important battle, being sort of the first female knight, or first recognized female knight at least. I don't know how much being knighted by Jaime means to a lot of other knights, to be honest, at this point, given his reputation, but I still think it was really cool.
Oh, who cares? And so irrelevant. So irrelevant. That episode, and we might have talked about this last week, but Jaime's arc is the best story in this whole show. Showing really slow, true redemption, flipping the script on what was so obviously the villain starting off.
Yeah, and that too, just the idea that redemption isn't a completely, isn't a straight line. Jaime messes up a few times along the way to becoming a better person. We don't really know his final role to play in this entire war. Bran has insinuated that there is some big thing that Jaime's going to be a part of. I'm sure it's going to end with his death. I'm excited to see him deliver on it. But it's going to be pretty cool that, he's going to start off as one of the worst, the least respected knights in history and end as one of the most respected.
So like just really quickly on that the idea of like of mistakes, right? I mean, because that's sort of like the theme of the episode, and maybe like why I liked it so much is the value of Tyrion is that he owns his mistakes and willing to learn from them, right? And I guess I was just really I was really touched by the sort of spirit of forgiveness.
Yeah.
That the episode is about. Yeah. And to be completely honest, I mean, I think like in a political, like in a real life political space, right? It's really nice to see fiction that is showing. I mean, it's almost like if you're going to use the metaphor of like the White Walkers as climate change, that this is showing sort of how you go about it, right? That like forgiveness has to be the number one step, right?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you can't move on together if you're still keeping score. I mean, on that note, while we're talking about sort of Tyrion, he's under a lot of scrutiny from Dany. Do we think that, I mean, he genuinely says that he made a mistake. He's not double-crossing anybody. Do we think that he has a secret deal with Cersei, or do we think that she really just manipulated him?
I'm kind of throwing out any sort of these little, like, I feel like the show is still trying to maintain some sort of little intrigue. I don't know why, really, Like, I'm really curious as to what... I guess like where I'm getting at is like I really don't know what the end of this series is going to be, because when Bran mentions like there's that ominous line to Jaime about oh god, how does he phrase it? It's like, how do you know there will be an after?
Yes.
You're right.
Yes.
And
that made me seem like I thought that meant like an after specifically for Jaime.
It just seems like the whole show is so ready to move on. I don't know. I'm hoping that it's going to have a very satisfying ending to it.
Yeah, I mean, again, if everyone's just sort of like marching blindly towards this one goal, this one battle, you really don't get the stakes or the emotional connections. Like, we didn't get that awesome scene with Brienne being knighted, or like that reunion with Theon and Sansa. Like that, those are things that make you care when people actually die, not just unnecessary dragon riding scenes.
Yeah, it's kind of it's almost like they're diminishing the plot. You know what I mean? The plot of the, and I really like that because I've never, I always thought that the biggest issue was going to be this whole battle with the Night King, and why I hated last season. I mean, last season just seemed like it was sacrificing everything about its characters to just sort of like position them where they needed to be to, fulfill certain plot elements of it. And now it's like they're adjusting course, Exactly.
I mean, and one final note just on Tyrion. There is the sort of Valonqar prophecy that the little brother or sister is going to be the one to kill Cersei. And he hints while he's on the bannerments. He says maybe he'll go down to the Red Keep and rip her apart himself. Do you think that's sort of a foreshadowing or a red herring? No, I
mean, to me that was just like a joke. I don't know. I didn't think too much of it. Just sort of like a funny throwaway line. I think it kind of needs to be Jaime who kills her. So I'm guessing he survives the battle, and then he sort of leads, the final wrap up with Cersei at the end.
Well, okay. Well, speaking of wrapping it up, Gendry and Arya finally get together. How'd you feel about the moment overall? I wanted it to be more, I don't know, like I know that Arya is sort of this independent and control woman, but it felt, I just would have liked for her to let her guard down in this one moment.
I don't think I like Arya too much, I guess is the issue. Like I find Maisie, was there Williams kind of annoying?
Yeah, she was very like, I mean, we touch on like Cersei sort of being like a foil character at this point. Arya is a little one note at this point too.
In her like seriousness, she lost all the fun of her character.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, cool that she wants to get laid before she might die. Feels like she's using Gendry. Like there's not really anything more there. It's sort like, of, it's sort of the problem with Bran too now, right? It's like when you make a character so enlightened, and above the others, right? Then you kind of kill their personality.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we have two robots on the show dealing with all other normal people. And that's when it gets like kind of frustrating.
Yeah, totally.
Well, with another important meeting, we had the Real Housewives of Winterfell. Sansa and Dany finally had their face-to-face meeting, which is my criticism of last week's episode, is that I just wanted them to talk directly. And it seems like they're on the same page, except for like when it comes to the future of Winterfell. I don't know why they keep acting like her and Jon just aren't going to get married. Like, it seems like the obvious solution, and I don't think that this whole thing that we'll talk about later, or we can talk about it now, Jon's relation to her is really that big of a deal.
This is like the biggest fumble, I think, of this season already. Like last week, I know we talked about it, but they really rushed his understanding of it, and then they rushed his explanation of it to her. I mean, right? Mm-hmm. But like, bro, finish the thought. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He just told her. She goes, "Oh, that would make you the heir," and he just goes, "Oh, a horn. I'm gonna like let this one hang." You know, like give it a second. Give her something reassuring. Maybe tell her we're not gonna let this split us up. Like, an obvious way to read it too would be like, "Oh, okay. Well, this is some sort of fate here, right?" Targaryens always rule together in couples, and like here we are. And
already done it. Got that out of the way.
Yeah, and we'll be king and queen together, and like this is obviously what should happen, right? So like, why why leave it on like sort of like fake soap opera kind of moment of a cliffhanger? Just feels kind of ridiculous. You can't drop a bomb like that and then not say anything more about it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And like another thing also on that note, I mean, it would feel different with her saying that Jon is actually the true heir to the throne, based on their traditions. But we know that he doesn't really want it, so it's like there's no conflict here. Any problem that's created is from in her own head.
I'm curious as to where the season ends. I feel like we can see a lot of their work. You know what I mean? And I'm not totally understanding the logic of certain decisions that they're making with the show. At this point, the show is like the work's been done. We care about these characters, and we just want to kind of see them win at this point, right? Like, there's been enough torture porn. There's been enough like Ramsay rape. There's been like this should be where we get to see, let's say, like last goodbyes, but like really true ones, right? So that people are gonna. Even though if they die, they're gonna die with honor. They're gonna die. That's like a big theme of this, right? Is like honor that I was thinking about that, as I was watching it, though, like, oh yeah, all the different, like, there's so many like honorable people that we've met through this show, and they finally made it to the end. And so like it's gonna suck when they lose, but there's something really satisfying about having all the honorable people kind of testify and like witness it in each other. We kind of know who the good guys are. More importantly, they know who each other are, Like, I don't think Bronn's going to kill either Jaime or Tyrion. I don't think anybody does, He's going to come, he's going to join the fight.
But ultimately, I mean, I think you're right. I have a feeling that we are going to be at least 80% satisfied with how this entire series ends.
I see like a Podrick suddenly like getting an arrow through the face, you know what I mean? And people being really affected by it.
Wow, the bloodlust is so real now.
Well, it's gonna, right? Like big characters are gonna need to die next week for any of this to have like a true payoff. It's like, look, Obi-Wan has to die, right? In Star Wars. People need to die for the satisfaction of kind of recognizing recognizing how much you actually cared about them. Right.
And how difficult this actual endeavor was. Again, you need those stakes of people actually dying.
Absolutely.
Well, speaking of those stakes, it looks like we're going to be getting into like the beginning of the big battle next episode. Miguel, who directed Battle of the Bastards, is going to be directing the next one as well. So we can assume we're getting
Sapochnik?
Yeah, we're going to be getting a huge action set piece. They really bring him in for those episodes, and it's always great.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you have any death predictions? Who died?
Pod, honestly.
Pod?
They brought him in again to remind us how much we love him, and I'm like, oh god.
Yeah. There's going to be some like heavy sacrifices, right? There's going to be some like people jumping in front of.
I don't know. I feel like almost everyone on the ground, I'm like really worried about, honestly.
Yeah.
Worried about a lot of the Ironborn, who are going to be the people on foot guarding Bran as they leave him as sort of a, Night King bait.
So give me your top 3 deaths for next week.
All right. 1, Podrick. 2,
Okay.
Theon and company.
Okay. Yeah.
3.
Yeah, that did feel like a sort of goodbye from him. I think I would. I think I'd keep Podrick alive. I'm gonna go on a limb. I'm gonna say the Hound. I thought there was something really telling about having him sort of kind of have his vocalizing his turn, his change, the fact that effectively he's saying he found meaning and that the meaning is here, and I think maybe he dies sort of protecting Arya, or is like doing something very heroic that he can die sort of happy with. I think it's also like we know that White Walkers and fire are an issue, and then he has this problem with fire. Maybe he finally gets over it. Yeah. Maybe he finally gets over it. Maybe he becomes right. Like, I'm just expecting something like that. I think with him, mostly because I also don't see him serving a purpose beyond this battle, from like a plot perspective.
I would definitely agree with you about the Hound. The only thing is, like, people have really been hoping for a Clegane Bowl. So that's like my only thing where I'm like, are we still going to want that? Are we still going to get that? I've just thought about this. What if Cersei attempts to march north on Winterfell during this battle to sort of like, wipe everyone out? And then it becomes, she realizes that the Night King and the Army of the Dead aren't just singularly like attacking Winterfell people. They're fighting everyone. Then that's maybe how they join forces.
Yeah. I mean, she's going to have to do something. Yeah, I'm really curious as to how they're gonna wrap all this up, because it's 4 episodes left, and
yeah,
there's a lot of ground to cover here. Because next episode is gonna be this whole battle, then some sort of fallout. We'll know that like the connection between Bran and the Night's King should have some sort of like bigger scope to it. It can't just be like a clean resolution of that and then going back to things as normal. So. And if it is, then oh man, what a fucking like what a bummer of like a setup for fucking 8 seasons of a show,
Yeah, I feel like they're gonna do us a better service than that, but it's they still have a lot of like loose ends to tie up, and to do it in a way that feels satisfying. So it's not like the easiest job story wise.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it for me, man. I'm very. Very excited.
Yeah, I am super excited for next week. Thank you so much for jumping on this week's episode of Filmcore TV Core-ner's Game of Thrones podcast. Looking forward to talking to you next week. It looks like we're also going to be getting TJ or Lulu on it next week with us too. So that's going to be pretty sweet.